Okay, go ahead. And this is an event that we hold on a regular basis to try to help connect some of our government officials to members of the chamber and the public as a whole. Get a chance to ask questions and get answers on that. So today, we are pleased to have Candace Andersen, our supervisor for the county, join us. She has been on this call many times and has always jumped in when we've needed help. So we really appreciate her taking the time today to join us. To give you a little bit of background, Candace was first elected to the Board of Supervisors in 2012. She's run twice since then and is planning to run for re-election this year.
And actually, I did. I'm sorry. I didn't get, apparently we didn't get you the correct bio. So
Okay.
I'm done. You already elected me.
Okay, well, then you're way ahead of yourself. And when I get to your grandchildren, I may be behind on that too.
No, I apologize.
That's quite all right.
Staff was supposed to send you the most current one. No.
Don't worry about it. She has been on the town council in Danville, and so she's really got a lot of experience in working with cities. She's on 24 different boards, committees, and commissions. We're not sure when you sleep, Candace, but obviously you keep very, very busy. Candace is a licensed attorney for both California and Hawaii. Hawaii is her home state. And she and her husband, Philip, have been married for 40 years. They are the parents of 6 children, ranging from age 25 to 38. And they have 11 grandchildren, which is very impressive. So Candace, thank you for joining us. Candace is going to run through some slides, give us an idea of what a county supervisor does, and relate this a lot to what goes on here in Lafayette and to the businesses in here in Lafayette. So Candace, welcome, and I will turn it over to you at this point.
Thank you so much, Matt. It is just a pleasure to be with you. So I am going to share my screen so you can, we'll just sort of, as mentioned, I'm going to go through some slides for us and share with you a little bit about the county for those of you who may or may not be as familiar with what we do, what our role is in relationship to the city, and then some things that we've been working on. So this is the district map. This is Contra Costa County. It's a big county. It's one of the larger counties in the state of California. And we, every 10 years, the year after the census, we redistrict. And so we did redistrict last year, or 2 years ago, actually. And the main change in my district is I gave up a little bit of Walnut Creek. I used to have a little bit more of Walnut Creek because I took in Diablo, Blackhawk, and the Tassajara Valley, which should have been part of my district all along for some political reasons. Last time around in 2011, before I was on the Board of Supervisors, when Gail Olkema was your supervisor, those things did not happen. And so that was the one thing I was able to rectify. But as we went through the redistricting process, I said, I really want to keep La Miranda intact. Each city is very different, but they work so well together. It's important that that stay together. And I did capture a little bit of unincorporated Walnut Creek, a little bit more. Sort of the Release Valley is the one that kind of goes from district to district, these unincorporated areas. And so, as I just was saying to Matt, I did get elected in March. What is fun about being a county supervisor is when you're on the ballot, if you win in the primary with 50% plus 1 vote, then you are done. You don't have to go into a November general election. And so fortunately in 2012, when I ran, I won the primary with 60% of the vote in a 3-way race. And then I've just been very, very fortunate not to have challengers in 2016, 2020, 2024, which makes it much easier to win the primary when you have no one running against you. So honored to be reelected. So some real basic facts about the county. We have just under a $6 billion budget, which sounds like a lot. It is, but a lot of it over half of that is state and federal revenue, because as I'll talk about, we oversee many state and federal programs, especially those safety net services. About 783 million of that is our general purpose revenue, which cities often think of as sort of their general fund. A lot of that's our property tax, some sales tax, things like that. And we have just under 9,000 filled employee positions, and the county population is about 1.16 million people, and we've got these wonderful 19 cities. And so I love this organizational chart because it really puts who is at the top, and that's the citizens of Contra Costa County. You are the ones that we are serving. You are the ones that get to elect your board of supervisors. We in turn appoint the county administrator, some department heads. Oops, excuse me. I have a mouse that wants to just keep moving. The bolded positions are positions that you also get to elect. So the assessor, auditor, controller, clerk, recorder, treasurer, tax collector, district attorney, sheriff, those are also elected positions. We don't get to tell them what to do, but we do oversee their budget. And so we do work collaboratively with them on the programs, their initiatives. If there's something that we absolutely feel strongly we don't want to fund because we don't agree with it, that's really our real tool, is through the budget process. So big question always is, well, what do you do? Who are you? Why are you even around? Do we really need a board of supervisors? So this is myself and my colleagues. We meet most Tuesdays at 9 a.m. in Martinez. You are always welcome to join us in person, but the public can also participate in person by Zoom. And we always provide a Zoom link, or on Contra Costa television and CCTV. If you do receive cable in your home through your cable network through Comcast, they have CCTV as one of their channels. You can also do it online, and then you can call in on the phone or via Zoom to make public comments. Some Tuesdays, next Tuesday, we are not meeting, but most Tuesdays we're there. We used to meet in this tall county administration building up here that many of you may have remembered. It had over $24 million of repairs. We slowly demolished it because it had asbestos and lead paint, so you couldn't just implode it. You had to really tear it down. Ultimately, it was completely torn down, as was the old jail. And there was an effort in Martinez to save this old jail that was built in the early 1900s out of some beautiful granite. There really wasn't a way to adequately repurpose it, given the retrofitting that would be needed. I never went into the old jail. Hopefully none of you did either. Actually, I think it was not in operation in most of our lifetimes, but it had very low ceilings, water issues, other things. And so ultimately it was demolished, and this is what has been built in its place. And so we do now have this beautiful plaza that's about to open. This building will be dedicated sometime early this summer. There will be this nice little, a little coffee shop of some kind right here, but we're looking forward to really helping Martinez be a little bit even more revitalized. Over here, for those of you who have done jury duty, are our courthouses, and this is the new county administration building on this side. So I do serve on a lot of boards and committees. I won't talk about that other than to say I have the opportunity to serve with some of your council members on things like RecycleSmart, which oversees your garbage. And so I get garbage recycling, reuse. I get to serve on transportation committees with Susan Kendall is serving on that. Don Tatson still serves on County Connection with us, and we appreciate the Lafayette Council for keeping him on that, because he provides so much great insight into what we need to do in our community. So another way I love to describe what's the difference between a city and a county is cities, you have an amazing city council, one of the best city managers. Narup is amazing, and your city does a really good job doing their planning, community development, all of the land use issue, parks, recreation, police service, traffic, transportation, all of those are done by the cities. And then in unincorporated areas, I get to do the same. And so the largest unincorporated communities that are in my district are Alamo, Black Hawk Canyon, Diablo Park, Mead, Saranap, Matasahara Valley. And of course, Saranap sort of crosses over a little bit into unincorporated Lafayette. And then, as I mentioned, I have some of the northern unincorporated Lafayette as well in my district. So Monday and Tuesday were our budget hearings. And this is where some of the services that your city doesn't provide, we, the county, provide. And so earlier I showed you that chart of all the different county departments. And so a lot of this is things like the Sheriff's Department, where we, we contract with Lafayette. So your police department are members of our Sheriff's Department, but also we have the county jails that where people are booked, where people are sentenced. And the district attorney, the public defender, all come under the county purview. Other areas where you're really impacted, of course, is your planning department also works with the county. And so there, when you have planning, land use issues, when you're in the process of building, when issues come up, I always encourage you to contact my office. It's not that we can move you to the top of the pile necessarily, but we can ask questions, figure out, is there an issue? What's going on? Is it something on our end where somehow emails have been missed, something's happened, or is it something that we're still waiting for your architect or engineer to submit? And so those are all really important things. We love to help you with that. Lori Byers, who is on this call, is my liaison to Lafayette. And so don't hesitate to reach out and let us help you sort through that issue. Other issue that often comes up is through our health services, environmental health. Environmental health is the one that certifies restaurants opening. If you need sinks in your retail store because you sell food, something like that, that's environmental health. They are the ones, of course, that also certify the cleanliness of your restaurants. Those are the things that we really, if you're having an issue, don't stew or get upset. Just give our office a call and let us help you sort through it and figure out what the next steps are. So as I mentioned, this was budget hearing, very long days this past Monday and Tuesday, but you can see how our budget has increased over time. And again, much of this is not our discretionary funding. In fact, it's quite a bit is coming from the state and the federal government, but it does certainly add up. And so this gives you a pie chart of where does it go. So public ways and facilities, that's things like our roads, our constructions, that's only 4% of our budget. General items, which would be administration, board of supervisors, our legal counsel, makes up about 6%. Most of it goes to what we call health and sanitation. And I don't know why they use the term sanitation, because it sounds like we have a very large garbage company running the county, but no, this is really, it's the health and welfare. It's our human services. We also then, the next biggest really pot of money goes to public protection, and that is the Sheriff's Department, the district attorneys, the public defender, the jails, and also animal services. And I'll be talking about animal services in a moment, because all of our cities but Antioch do contract with the county for animal services. And then this shows you where our money comes from. Only 13% comes from property taxes. 36% is revenue from our health plan, from services rendered in our health department. The 25% is intergovernmental revenue. That's the state and the federal funding that is coming in to assist us with various things. And those are kind of the biggest areas. So some of you will notice when you get New York's property tax bill that it is no longer Russell V. Watts who is sending you that dreaded property tax bill in the fall, informing you that you need to pay your taxes. And hopefully all of you got them in by April 10th. Dan Mirzwa is our new appointee, although Russell V. Watts was an elected official. He was elected a year and a half ago. He did move out of the state. And so we then went through a very rigorous selection process where we recruited and interviewed various individuals. And so Dan was overwhelmingly our choice. And he's the one who sends out the property tax bills, collects, processes your tax payments, manages the investment pool, because we do have an investment pool in the county, which right now we, like cities, we're very cautious in how we invested, but we are seeing a tremendous return on investment right now, simply because interest rates have gone up so much. Sort of the bank for the county schools and special districts, and then handles delinquent tax payment processing and holds tax defaulted property auctions. And something interesting about property taxes is we are what are part of in our county called a teeter plan. And the teeter plan means that cities, even if some of your residents choose not to pay their taxes or they're not able to pay their property taxes, We, the county, give you the full amount as if everyone did pay their taxes. We assume the risk of collecting those taxes. At the same time, we receive the interest from those delinquent payments and also then process any tax defaulted. But it allows particularly a smaller city to have certainty as they budget, and it's a state, the teeter plan is a state option that many counties opt into, as we do. And so now we also, as of Tuesday, have a new animal services director named Ben Winkleblack, and he replaces Beth Ward, who moved back to Ohio, where she was from, to raise her children and be closer to her family. And in the interim, we had just one of our amazing animal services officers did a fabulous job keeping things going. And so Ben's background is really nice. He came from Santa Cruz County Animal Health Services first as a technician, rose up to become a shelter manager. He was the assistant director for the City of Oakland Animal Services, and promoted some things that we've been working on for many years, such as owner retention, which means you don't want people just surrendering their dogs. You want to help them figure out how can they, through some, dog training, owner training, how do we keep people, keeping their animals, supporting unsheltered animals, and then increasing low-cost spay neuter, which is a big issue in our county, because in some parts of the county, we have either sort of the puppy mill issue or just people not spay neutering and an overpopulation of animals that are surrendered then to our animals shelters. And of course, we don't want any animal to be euthanized if it's a healthy animal that is of good temperament, etc. And so we work a lot with rescue organizations, but unfortunately, not every animal can be saved. And then most recently, he was a consultant to the Humane Society of St. Thomas Virgin Islands. After he sat through 2 days of our budget hearings, I did ask him if he had thought about buying a return ticket back to the Virgin Islands. So with animal services, there was just recently, a couple of months ago, really about a month ago, an increase per a formula that the cities and the county had sort of agreed upon, but it amounted to about a 30% increase. And there wasn't a lot of notice over it. And needless to say, city managers across the county were concerned because it was a lot, especially if you have a relatively small budget. And so our acting animal services director went back, came up with a revised formula that will provide a certain savings by still following the same formula that was agreed to in cost sharing, will then come up to a much better resolution with for the cities. And so the way it has broken down, cities pay per capita, so per person for animal services. And so what had been recommended was going to come up to about $12.11 per person. If you were living in a city, the county pays more. We subsidize it a little bit. In unincorporated areas, we're paying about $33 per person. So with these revised rates, it's going down to $10.92 a person. So for Lafayette, it's a savings of about $30,000 this year, which for any city, that's helpful. And I don't know it's going to solve all things, but certainly that's something we're going to be having Mr. Winkleblack working on when he gets into office. And I know that the public managers, the city managers have set up a committee to sort of continue to look at, do we have the right formula in place? Is there another formula we should have in place? The reality is it's not cheap to run a shelter. Antioch is the only city that does. And they are paying, last time I checked, somewhere about $16 per capita to run their own animal services. And so it's something that most cities don't want to do, and we don't want to, there's obviously, by working together, there's a certain amount of cost savings that goes with that. Something that could affect Lafayette is the Alamo-Lafayette Cemetery District, which includes the beautiful Lafayette Cemetery right here, just down the road from my office, has applied for dissolution with LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Commission. Main reason is they feel they don't have sufficient tax revenue coming in through a series of changes ever since Prop 13. They've seen a lower percentage of their tax base coming in. Some of it had to do with tax shifts such as ERAF, one where the state was taking money away, putting more in the schools, and they were supposed to make whole cities and other districts, but they didn't make some special districts whole, in this case, Alamo-Lafayette. So we're going through a process. I sit on the Local Agency Formation Commission, as did Don Tatson for many years, your former mayor. And so we have an expert, a consultant who is providing a report about different options. Should it be merged with the Byron Brentwood Cemetery, Knights and Cemetery District? And right now, the same person is running both districts and drawing salaries from both districts. That district is very opposed to that. So we'll see what happens there. Should the county end up, because we're the largest tax base, become the successor agency, what would the county do? Would we run it as a cemetery? Another option is honoring the existing burials that have been already purchased, and then consider making it into more of a memorial park with the revenue available. Again, both cemeteries in Alamo, it's technically in Danville, but it's called the Alamo Cemetery. Both cemeteries, are such a rich treasure for our communities. So many of our pioneer ancestors who really established Lafayette, established the San Ramon Valley, are buried in both cemeteries. My goal really is to preserve them, regardless, and whether we can keep it as an active cemetery remains to be seen, but absolutely it will need to be preserved. So that's another sort of stay tuned for that one. Something that I'm really excited about is we're moving forward with the shaded fuel break, which will benefit Lafayette. And so we had a ceremony a few months ago in Rossmore, and this is something that is $3 million California grant, and they have been very, very busy already. In the last 60 days, they have cut back over 70 acres of fuel in the hills behind Rossmore, between Lafayette and Moraga, in that area. In April, they may just be doing some, and we already are in April, they haven't done them yet, but some pile burning. If there's some hard to reach areas where they can't bring out the debris, they will continue to do that. And we have Crew 12, which is funded through Measure X, the sales tax in Contra Costa County, which is just a hand crew. And they are currently, we are having them live out at what used to be the Byron Boys Ranch. The Byron Boys Ranch was closed a couple of years ago, and youth who had qualified for that are now going into the community. But Fire ended up purchasing that site, and that's where they're going to be using it for their seasonal crews as well. And A3, which I know your city manager was very involved in as we got this up and running in the middle of the pandemic. And so our A3 program now, and this is a anyone, anytime, any place crisis, alternative to police in a mental health crisis, is now open 24/7. Right now, they're getting about 1,000 calls a month. Got a good turnaround time in seconds to answer at our Miles Hall answering dispatch center. And then 75%, which is a really good number, of the caller's needs are resolved by phone. And this is much like 211, our crisis center, where you are able to either direct someone to services or help them get through a little glitch in time. And when a mobile team is the right response, and they're not always going to be the right response, if there is any threat of violence, of harm to someone, police will still need to be dispatched, or potentially both. And it can take up to 20 minutes for a mobile team arrival. And one of the biggest challenges in getting this up and running really was finding enough people to hire. And it's just, there's some areas, and we'll be talking in a moment a little bit about unemployment numbers, but in our health industry, we still have a lot of vacant positions. Family Justice Center is something that some of you may be familiar with. There currently is one in Concord. There is one out in Antioch, one in Richmond, and we're in process of opening one up in the San Ramon Valley, where we have, right now in San Ramon, it's amazing, well over a third of the population in San Ramon speak another language as their first language. A very large Asian population from both Southeast Asia as well as China, Korea, India, Pakistan. And so we're moving forward with one there. It's a place, sort of an area where people show up and whatever services they need, whether it be housing, food, domestic violence actions where they may have to get a restraining order, adult protective services, financial issues, we're going to have that there. And I will be having embedded in that center, I am being assigned to have one navigator from Employment Human Services. And this is something that we don't have currently, we haven't had in the past. And I will also be looking at potentially having that navigator in our Lafayette office one day a week as well, because we recognize that while people perceive our communities as being these affluent places where there's nothing wrong, nothing to worry about, everyone's doing fine, we know they're not. And we know there are tremendous needs. And so having a navigator from Employment Human Services assigned specifically to my office, I want to make sure that all of you are aware of that. And as you see people in need or may need services, don't hesitate to reach out to my office, because we want to make sure we're helping. And we are moving forward. Ground has been broken on what's now called the West County Reentry Treatment and Housing Facility. This is out at the Richmond Jail, out at our West County Detention Facility. You can see down here, it's this little area. When this large jail was built, this pad was created with all of the infrastructure needed to one day expand. And it's going to give us 288 high security beds, including 96 of those being mental health treatment beds. And it's going to have a medical facility, family visitation space, which currently there is not at our jail, classrooms for vocational training. And the benefit of that is the high security beds right now are high security prisoners are in Martinez. They're people who shouldn't be integrating with the rest of the jail population, perhaps because of gang affiliation or other specific needs that they may have. They don't have access to the same vocational programs, the training that we want to give people while they're incarcerated out of West County. This will allow them to do that. And we're not creating new beds. We will be decommissioning 288 other beds so that we will have a net, no new net beds. And that was a big concern of advocates. Now, I will be the first to say that the last place you want to send someone with a mental illness is to a jail for treatment. But the reality is that well over 1/3, if not a half, of those who cycle through our jails do have some level of mental illness. And while they're with us, we want them to be treated. We want them to be stabilized. And then upon reentry, find the appropriate placement, supportive housing for them. And REACH ordinance, like many cities, we, the county, of course, had a REACH ordinance that prohibited gas appliances being installed in any new construction. We have paused our ordinance based upon the Ninth Circuit opinion. And so many cities are doing that. We did have an attorney reach out to us soon after this happened, after the Ninth Circuit decision, representing an Alamo landowner, and essentially said, if you don't lift this, you will be sued. It happened to be the same lawyer who had brought the city of Berkeley action. And REACH ordinances, we'll continue to do education. Personally, I have not been as big a fan of REACH ordinances because I think there should be some personal choice in how we reduce our carbon footprint. And I also have serious concerns about the ability of our infrastructure, our PG&E transmission lines, our panels, all of those things to rise to the level that the state thinks it can. As you talk to PG&E, there are some places northern in the state where subdivisions that are being approved are not even able to access the electricity needed just simply because of how impacted PG&E is. And so how quickly they can upgrade communities so that they can have all electric appliances in every house is a little bit challenging. And so that's something that I'm continuing, and peers on the air board are looking at. How do we balance that, where we all want cleaner air and we all want to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, but do we really have the ability to provide that infrastructure? So unemployment in Contra Costa County right now is about 4.7%. It's up a full percentage point from where it was in June 2023. Lafayette, you continue to be below average. You fortunately, the people in your community are fairly well employed. And then you do see some areas where it's just, startling how high it is. In Bay Point, Byron, which is more of a retirement area, farming area. Oops, excuse me, it happened again. But nevertheless, it still continues to be a concern. And yesterday, I'm an officer with the East Bay Economic Development Alliance, and we had an excellent presentation by the Public Policy Institute of California about unemployment. And so I thought it would be helpful to share some of these slides with you, because right now, it's still historically low when we look at it compared to going back to 1978. The blue line is California, and the orange line is the general US. And this line, of course, is inverted V, is the pandemic. And you can see we're almost back down to some pre-pandemic levels. This was the Great Recession in 2010 through 2012. And so you can see we're sort of cyclical. We're not that far off of where we've been in the past. And with our unemployment rates, we're just slightly higher than the US. And you'll see in some other slides, our economy isn't doing quite as well. This is where our recovery, and this is showing our, our jobs, creation of new jobs. We started in about July of 2022, sort of diverting. The US continued on a little bit of an upward trajectory. California has sort of trailed below and is sort of on a parallel track. And this is just based on job recovery since 2020, since again, the great impact of the pandemic on us. So this was interesting information from the Public Policy Institute of California. Again, taking no credit for these slides, they're theirs. She's happy to have me, our presenter, to have me share these with you. But this was really telling too. This slide was created for Alameda, Contra Costa County, where we're really seeing our job growth. And so healthcare, not a big surprise, is the biggest job growth. Job generator for those of you who have who are in a medical industry, who are in for your medical treatment, you can see that there's a constant demand of new individuals. Government continues to be quite high as well. And some of that's turnover, and some of that is just with ARPA, the Recovery Act funding, with other tax funding available. You have seen a great desire for more positions. Professional and tech industry continues, despite the layoffs we're seeing, to have some job growth. Services, arts and entertainment, food, going down to education, retail trade, and I'm sure many of you in Lafayette are still sort of feeling that, finding the right employees. Construction, where you're losing jobs, have been in management, real estate, admin services, finance, wholesale trade, transportation, information, and manufacturing. And that manufacturing isn't something we want to see in Contra Costa. In fact, we continue to really want to promote manufacturing in the northern waterfront area, along the water, from going all the way from El Cerrito, all the way as you come up, all the way up to Antioch. And the other thing that they pointed out too is just that, we still are feeling the impact of inflation. While it's not rising, it hasn't gone back down either. And so when you look at the really sort of the price level of things is 19% higher than it was before the pandemic, according to their analysis, which was a startling number to me. I mean, I knew we had seen several years of 4 or 5% inflation of CPI. And so as they analyze it, they're suggesting that what looks like a $5 an hour pay raise really to many workers feels like $1.25 pay cut, because goods have gotten so much more expensive, gas is so much more expensive. And their analysis is, when you look at this, things, yeah, they've stabled off, but they're not going back down here to where we were in 2020. And so this is kind of my presentation. This is my great staff, always happy to serve you. We typically staff the office in Lafayette on Thursdays. If you would like to meet with me there some other day, I'm always happy to do that. And if you do not get my e-blast that I send out typically Friday afternoons, please let me know, because we would love to start sending it to you. And now I am very happy to take questions. And the first question that I did have is, let me just make sure I've stopped sharing, is concerned how we could help cities with their RENA, the question was, does the County Board of Supervisors have the ability to support the cities in its jurisdiction? For example, in supporting the certification of housing elements like Lafayette's, thinking that since they're unincorporated areas of Lafayette, that they might be able to assist in that regard. So we have we have our own RENA numbers that we had to come up with in our housing element. And it was, no small feat to figure out where we were going to be putting in unincorporated Contra Costa County. We had 7,610 new homes that we needed to identify locations for. I know Lafayette had just over 2,100 homes. And so as far as assisting, you do have some counties that have worked with cities to say, you know what, we have better spots where we could absorb more units. We'll take some of your units. Do you want some of our units? Some cities have wanted them. Hasn't really been the case in Contra Costa, simply because the county had to come up with their 7,600. As far as assisting, technically, our Department of Conservation Development works closely with the city, with your city planners, always happy to help with that. And actually ABAG also, the Association of Bay Area Governments, provided some technical assistance to sort of assist with that. So hopefully that answered your question. But yes, to me, we are always, as I was saying during our budget hearings, when I was getting pushback from one of my fellow supervisors about lowering the animal services rate, I said, our cities are our allies. They're not our adversaries. We need to do what we can to support our cities, help them get the services they need in a way that fits into their budget, not try to strangle them by pushing services that won't necessarily help them, but will cost them a lot. So absolutely, we're there to help. But as far as taking over their RENA numbers, not so much.
Okay. Hey, we got another question. Somebody raised their hand, and while we're Cheryl's getting ready to ask her question, if anybody else has questions, you can either post them online on the chat or just raise your hand using Zoom. But Cheryl McDonald had a question for you, Candace, that she wanted to ask you directly. So Cheryl, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself and ask your question. Cheryl, you're still muted. Okay.
I think it's Cheryl McDonald, Matthew.
I'm sorry, Cheryl McDonald. Okay, my pardon. Thank you, Libby.
I think that's why she didn't respond.
Yeah. Cheryl, are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, I'll keep an eye on that. Another question came in. It has to do with public transportation, Candace. Some of us are familiar with some of the struggles that BART has had in rebuilding people using their system. I know you're involved with other county public transportation. What's kind of the state of public transportation in and around Lafayette besides BART?
Yeah, well, of course, County Connection. And this weekend, as they're doing repairs from, I think, Rock Ridge up to Lafayette, people will be using a bus bridge that's provided by County Connection. And so we work closely with them. There's a big push within the Bay Area and with the state government. Some people would like to see us consolidate into one giant transit system, branded under one name, under one organization, have MTC, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, run this big uber giant system. Not something that we're in favor of, because we fear that a lot of local routes would be lost, that only the most productive routes would be the ones that would be moving forward. But what we are doing is, basic things like your Clipper card. In the past, you used to have to take out money for County Connection. Clipper was kind of, you could start using it on BART. Now you can use Clipper on any of the transportation systems within the Bay Area. And you can also, through our mobile apps, figure out how you're going to connect. With senior transportation, we are doing some really amazing things called one-seat rides, where before, if you had medical services that would take you to a different bus service area, you would have to transfer a bus to get to your medical appointment. And so instead, we're working, there's something with Livermore Amador Transportation, where it's what we call, literally, it's almost like an Uber dispatch service for senior transportation. And so we're continuing to see that, to really sort of focus on some of the micro trips. We are with the 680 Innovate 680 CCTA is working on, we are moving forward with more express buses, utilizing the bus shoulder, the shoulder of the freeway in some instances, having more places where you're going to be able to get on and off a bus as an alternative to mass transit where you don't have it. So for example, you can get to Walnut Creek on BART, and you can get to Dublin, but you can't get from Dublin to Walnut Creek because there is no BART track between them. So we're looking at things like that, but a lot of it is sort of, how do we make it more efficient? How do we make it easier for riders to just hop on one mode of transportation and get to where they want to go and not have to keep coming up with different fares? And so even the fact that we can do it with a Clipper card, an app on your phone, you no longer have to have a Clipper card physically. You can add it to your Apple Wallet and just click and use it on the buses, use it on the trains, on BART. It's a great thing. BART is doing a lot to improve its quality of services, which is a good thing because many of us weren't comfortable riding BART for a while. And I don't know if you've had Carrie Hillis, who is on Moraga's town council, or other customer affairs representatives come and talk about what they're doing with their ambassador program, with a stronger BART police presence. With a mobile app, you can alert BART when you have concerns when you're on a train, and just the sweeps they've been doing up stations, as well as putting up fare gates so that those of you who pay your fare can guarantee that everyone else on the train is also paying their fare. So some really good things happening there.
Good. Hey, David, you've got your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and let you ask your question.
Okay, good. I have a quick comment, Supervisor, about the BART. You can also qualify for senior discounts, and they get embedded in the buck cards, and it's very inexpensive to get from, for example, Lafayette. It's worth doing, but that's not what I raised my hand for, Matt. I noticed, Supervisor, in the list of job growth categories, that the construction category was virtually nil. I mean, kind of neutral. It surprises me a little bit, and it's a concern, because as we, not just Lafayette, but across the board, as we adopt these RETA numbers for housing that hopefully is going to get built in the future, who's going to build it? Is there a projection or a reason as to why that number is so, I would think it's low, and maybe it's the absence of available financing, I don't know, but is there some background?
And
yeah,
not having created the chart or the analysis, I don't know all the background, but I know that a lot of construction has been slowed by interest rates. Just the reality of holding on to a property while you get the entitlements, unless something's already entitled and you've got someone who is either self-funded or already had their funding locked in, it is very expensive, and it has slowed down right when we do need more housing, particularly because the state is putting pressure on all of us not to just create our RENA sites, but to make sure things are getting built. So that is one of those issues. And then a lot of the supply of workers in the construction trade is not as robust as we wish it was. They've either moved to other areas that are more affordable to live in, or I know when we are doing projects, it's not always easy to get the qualified staff. And I know our trade unions are really focused on that, and apprentice programs, particularly with high school students, community colleges, to try to train a whole new generation of people who could go into the building industry. But that's a great question, David. I don't know. I don't have the answer. Just those are the areas that I'm aware of right now.
Thank you.
Great. We had another question come online from Graham, Candace, and that was regarding the Republic contract. Is that being negotiated? His concerns about the difficulty in disposing of batteries, oil, paint, trash coming out of the recycled trucks. Any comments about that?
Absolutely. And that's what we're right now. We on RecycleSmart, and your mayor sits on RecycleSmart with me. She's actually the chair of RecycleSmart. That is what we're going through. We are going through a whole RFP process for our next 10-year contract. And it's critical that we have providers that are not going to miss routes as they have historically. Lafayette, you guys got hit really hard the last couple of years with routes being missed. With Republic, we impose new penalties with them when missed routes, and they are supposed to credit. If your house is not picked up on trash day and they do not notify you, you are supposed to be credited back for that. They just installed a new general manager who I met yesterday. They are committed to quality control, because if they bid on this RFP that we have out, that's going to be one of the critical things. Can they perform? And so, yes, you should be able to. In fact, I did it at my house last week, Graham. I put out my Ziploc bag of batteries. You put it on your recycling bin, and actually they're supposed to pick it up. They picked mine up. Hopefully they then recycled them properly. And then there are some things that we are looking at in this contract. Should we be the ones picking them up? Fluorescent light bulbs. Right now, a lot of those things you are allowed to put out on top of your blue can. Other things, though, you do end up needing to go to Central Sands location in Martinez, in between Concord and Martinez, which I will say, it's really Martinez, very convenient. How many of you have gone to the hazmat? I mean, you drive in, they unload everything for you. You're in and out in about 3 minutes. It's a really, really effective way to get things done. The other thing they do have is they have that reuse warehouse, where if there are paints or building supplies you want, fertilizers, pool supplies, you can go into their warehouse and for free, take materials that someone else has donated, and where they still have a good shelf life. One thing I will say with the new contract, we are planning on keeping our reuse stays, and hopefully many of you already utilize that, where twice a year you get to put out anything that is still in good shape. They come and pick it up, they donate it to a nonprofit, and then stuff that is just bulky and big, that gets ultimately ends up typically in the landfill. And if you don't know where to reuse something or have it recycled, go to the RecycleSmart website. There's a wonderful page where you just type in the search column, what do I do with this? Whether it's a mattress or a television, because it's so hard to know. And it's one of our best resources on RecycleSmart. We've got a tremendous executive director, Dave Kruger, who we just hired last year. I'm very pleased with the direction we're going, but you will have opportunities to comment about things as we go through this process. So thanks for the question, Graham.
Okay. Another question came in, or this came in from Cheryl. She wasn't able to unmute. An organization, the acronym is BAHFA, has proposed $10 to $20 billion in Bay Area affordable housing bond. Do you have any more details on that, Candace? And maybe potential impact in Lafayette?
Yeah, it is. It's something that will be, in all likelihood, it will be on your November ballot. And it's a question of, do the people of the Bay Area want to create this bond indebtedness to create more affordable housing? And it will go through the counties, and then the counties will work with cities to utilize this funding. There's a whole formula of how it will be divided to create more affordable housing. And it's kind of similar to what we do now. The county gets lots of different pools of money for affordable housing. And very often when Lafayette's building a project that's affordable with a nonprofit, with an Eden Housing or nonprofit builder, in order to pencil that out, they go to maybe 5 to 10 different sources of revenue. And one of them is typically the county, where we might have 2 or 3, even 4 different pots of money where we can say, okay, we can give you, $3 million from this pot here. Our goal is to help cities build affordable housing. And I will be the first to say, I think the way I describe it, the best way I describe it is what was explained to me early on in my career by a Dublin housing authority is, in a perfect world, we want in our community to house everyone who works in the doctor's office. So the doctor, the physician assistant, the nurse, the clerk, the receptionist, the janitor who comes in and cleans at night. And we're not all going to live in the same type of house. Some people will have different type, bigger houses than others, but we want people to live and work in their own community. And by building affordable housing, within each community, we have that ability to house everyone who works in the doctor's office, so to speak. And so I see that particularly affordable housing oftentimes is for our seniors. And as I've shared before, they are one of our highest increasing homeless rates are seniors on fixed incomes who no longer can afford the apartments they've been renting for many, many years or homes, or they need to move out of whatever residence they're in. So again, senior affordable housing is something I think everyone can agree we should be incorporating. And so BAFA, as it moves forward, is something that if it passes, it really will assist our cities, the county with those projects. And even though the money comes through the county, I have been working really hard to have us, even before it goes before the voters, to come up with a formula so that cities and city councils will feel confident that they would be getting their fair share if in fact this passes. And we do have funding available to help build more housing.
Great. Another comment came in about the Youth Crisis Stabilization Unit in Martinez. Maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah.
Graham felt that was a really good piece of news.
No, I'm excited about it. In fact, I'm touring it this afternoon. I've got a Child Abuse Prevention Council lunch that I'm going to, and then I'm heading over to the new clinic. And it's something where we've had, for a long time, you have psych emergency, but you don't put youth into regular psych emergency. And with a youth stabilization, it's something that's much more conducive to our youth to help them stabilize when they're in a crisis. And, typically you don't want youth in there for an extended period of time, but this is something, a welcoming area that is going to be really important. We need even more, from my perspective, alternative locations for youth to deal with crises. And I'm really pleased that so many of the schools, particularly in the La Miranda area, have wellness centers on campus right now. A place where, and I know Graham's been very instrumental in assisting with those and other endeavors, but just a place where youth have a safe space where they can just go and share what they're feeling. And trying to have opportunities to intervene before things get so serious that you do end up in one of our emergency locations. So I'm looking forward to touring that this afternoon.
Okay. We've just got a few minutes left. Holly, I wanted to give you a moment just to kind of highlight any chamber events that are coming up that you think are appropriate for the audience.
Right, absolutely. Thanks, Matt. I just want to say thank you, Candace, for your time today. And shout out to Lori Byers, who's behind the scenes as well, putting information in the chat. So information on Recycle Services, how to get on Candace's email blast, etc. You can check out the chat. I've also have some notes and we'll post this recording on our YouTube channel to share out. If you missed any of it, or if you want to share it with someone, please do. The chamber, as well as our chamber members, have close to a zillion events coming up over the next few weeks. I'm putting together an email blast today that includes some great events, a trucking event tomorrow, a wine event on Sunday, all the way through to our Rock the Plaza events through June and beyond. So I'll post that as well, but you can get that on our email blast later this afternoon. Just a plug for one of our newest events. It's called the Artisan Walk. We're working with our local retailers and local artists to showcase what they have and what they have locally and what they're making locally on May 11th. It's the day before Mother's Day from 1 to 4 in downtown Lafayette. So no tickets are needed. We just hope you stroll Lafayette and shop local and support local. So thank you again, Matt. I know there was a couple other questions. I don't know if you want to dive into anything, or we can take questions offline as well. Feel free to reach out to any of us at the chamber, and thank you again.
Okay, Candace, thank you very much for your time, and we really appreciate all your support at the county level. And we'll see everybody for our next coffee, which Holly will publicize soon. So thank you very much, Candace.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Supervisor.